Alright gang, now we're outside. Let's get this thing set up. It's actually pretty simple. Obviously, we put our reel on our rod. Makes sense. So let's string it. First step is to, actually before you get started, why don't we take our cast control and just snug it down. You don't have to torque it, but just snug it down. That way you have control of the spool at all times. Alright, now, we're going to release our spool and pull some line out. And the first place we want to put it is through the line guide. Or the level wind. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Get it through the level wind on the reel. Alright, and then we're going to string it up through the rod. So make sure we get every guide. Alright, and then pull down a little bit of slack and re-engage your spool. Now, the spool's not going to walk off on you. The next thing we're going to do is tie on a practice weight. You can use a lead weight. I'm going to use an old jig today, but anything will work. Usually something in the 3/8 to ½ ounce range is a good way to get started. I'm just going to take an old jig. Tie it on real quick. Alright, now we're ready to get started. Now, we have our practice weight tied on, we have our line spooled, and we're strung up, so we're ready to go. Now, the first thing we want to do is adjust the fall rate. And the fall rate of the bait is how quickly the bait falls under free spool. And that's controlled by your cast control knob. So we already have it snugged up. We should be able to release our spool with the thumb bar and have control of the bait. Now hopefully when I lift up, this will not fall. And it doesn't, it's nice and tight. What I want to start doing now is I want to back down this cast control knob until the bait just starts to fall, nice and steady. I want a nice steady fall, and I don't want it picking up speed on the way down. I'm just going to get this in front of the camera for you so you can see it. I'm going to bring my rod tip back to 11 o'clock position, release the spool, and I want to see a nice steady fall. So I'm going to back that down until I just get that nice steady fall. Just like that. Alright? For my newbies, maybe even a little tighter than that, just before it starts to fall. Maybe one click before it starts to fall, so you have to jiggle it down, would be acceptable. But somewhere in that range. Alright? Now we've got our cast control set. The next thing we're going to do is set our pins. And it's really easy to do. I like to start with one pin activated, one pin deactivated, all the way around, so every other pin out. Alright, that's usually where I start. Then I'll put my side plate back on again. And our third is our magnetic brake. Now how do we set our magnetic brake? Here's what we're going to do. Our magnetic brake should be on 0 right now. I want to go back to the 11 o'clock position, and again, let that bait fall. But this time, don't stop it halfway down. I want to let it hit the ground this time. So I'm going to let it fall from 11 o'clock, hit the ground. And what I'm watching for is overrun. If I get any overrun at all, that means the bait is stopping, the reel is not. Now I want to add magnets to it. So on that one I got a slight bit of overrun. So I'll take it up to, let's say probably 3. From 0 to 3. Let's try it again. Still got a little bit of overrun. I'll go to 5. And that time it stopped. So you can see now, when I release this bait, without even touching the spool, the bait stops immediately. Well, excuse me, the spool stops immediately when the bait hits the ground. Now we're ready to start casting. Alright? The first cast you want to do is what's called a pitch cast. Alright? And what we'll need for that is a target. So for this instance, you can't see it on the camera, but there's a little bucket out there, and I'm going to try and hit that bucket. Alright? But I'm going to show you the mechanics of the pitch cast. And a pitch cast is done this way. You hold the bait in your hand, level with the reel, so at the same height. And all you're going to do is just drop the bait, just like that. Just drop the bait. All right? But obviously, if I drop the bait, that bait's not going to go anywhere. So we need to accelerate it a little bit. And how are we going to do that? By dropping our rod tip down and pushing it forward. So we're going to drop the bait and then push it forward with our rod tip. All right? Just like that. All right? What we're going to try and do now is hit our target. So I'm going to drop the bait, flip my wrist. If you notice, I'm not throwing the bait out. The last thing you want is slack lining your rod like that, because that makes the reel jump. And the brakes are not designed for a jumping spool. They're designed for a smooth casting operation. So I'm going to take the bait, and I'm just going to load my rod tip up and just send it out just like that. All right? And I'll do this with the reel turned up so you can see it. What I'm doing is, my spool is released right now. I have control of the spool with my thumb. All right? And I'll try and do this so you can see it. When I drop my bait and lift my rod tip, I'm just going to accelerate it forward just like that. When I do, I'm going to release pressure on the spool and allow it to slide out. This does two things. First of all, we're checking that our reel is adjusted properly. All right? We're looking for backlash, whether it be middle, front end, or rear end backlash. And we can make adjustments accordingly because we know how to do that now. All right? And the third thing we're learning is a very effective cast. When this cast is done properly, you'll see that the bait travels very low to the water and drops in near about without a ripple. And when old Mr. Largemouth is hiding behind that stump or hiding behind that dock piling in 6 inches of water, you can't just slam a bait in on top of him. He's never going to see it. You've got to smoothly ease it into him. And the way you do that is with a pitch. So we're learning how to adjust our reel properly. We're learning thumb control of the spool, which is the most important thing in bait casting, by practicing this way. And we're learning an accurate way to present a bait with very, very little water disturbance, which is a key to catching big fish. And here's what it looks like. Just like that. See if I can do this left-handed so you guys can see it. And what I'm going to do, again, is drop my bait, swing it out, and let it slide through my thumb just like that. All right? And it's going to look just something like this. Just like that. And I want to train my thumb as to what that spool feels like sliding under it. All right? And that's how you get started. The next step is to move further as you get better and better. You can hit your target every single time. Start moving further away. Back up a little bit. As you back up, you get to the point where you can't reach it anymore. Now it's time to stop backing your brakes down. You release your brakes a little more, give yourself a little more free spool. Your cast will become lower to the water, more accurate, and longer distance. So now instead of having to be 5 feet from that bass, you can be 15 feet from that bass, or 20 feet from that bass, which is going to make all the difference, especially in clear water. So get out there practicing, and the next thing we're going to discuss the underhand roll cast. All right, and the roll cast is the next step. Once you've got control of your reel and trained your thumb, the underhand roll cast is the next step. All right, I'll see you on the water. My name's Ed Nelson.